welcome to our second Meet the Mentor. It's loading. Thank you. This is our Women in Tech event, so December 15th, 2020. Okay, so brief agenda. What is TU20? Intros, a panel, Q&A, and then breakout rooms if we have time. Okay, so this is just a very, very quick overview of what Tech Under 20 is. Let me just admit people. Okay, so this is just a very brief overview of what Tech Under 20 is. So these are a couple main events. So at the beginning of the year, we have Tech Under 20 Expo, and then that heads into a lot of our other events. The main one, which is coming up, which all of you guys are here for, is Tech Under 20 Cup. This is the kickoff week for that. This is just a really quick overview of what we do. I'm sure you guys have heard this before. Nope. Okay, cool. So we have 3 panelists today. I'm sure they'll be willing to give a more thorough introduction themselves, but this is a brief overview of who we have here today. Okay, cool. So do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Kashaf, maybe want to start?
Sure. Okay, so I'm Kashaf. Nice to meet all of you virtually. So I am currently an intern at Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, and I'm still a student at the University of Toronto. So at the University of Toronto, I'm studying computer science, cognitive science, and psychology. So I'm currently on a 1-year internship at OTPP, and that'll end in May, and then I'll go back to school. And just other stuff about me is I host a podcast called Worth the Cash, and I run like a coding Instagram called Code with Kashaf, and code is with a K. And that's kind of what I've been up to recently.
Cool. Okay, Betsy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Most definitely. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. I am Betsy, and I actually work as a senior campus lead for cybersecurity, technology infrastructure, and new grad partnerships. So very passionate about diversity, students and new grads in the tech space. I myself did take a tech course in university a couple years ago and did quite well in coding. So I might have to tag on you, Kashaf, for those tips. But I really enjoy what I do. I also have a business. It's an organic skincare line, just launched this year. We're doing really well and really trying to promote, people investing in themselves, including your skin. And most importantly, I'm just excited to be with you today and to talk and give you some nuggets. So looking forward to the conversation.
Cool. I don't want to say your name wrong.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I can go. Thank you, everyone. My name is Kewe. I am currently a co-founder of a startup called Everlinks. And what we do is we partner businesses and suppliers of PPE together. Apart from that, in my full-time role, my day job, I work as an internal consultant at RBC, same as Betsy, but I offer consultant services to an internal group called Transformation and Enterprise Operations. And in this role, I do support with digital transformation, strategy development, and portfolio change management. So that's a little bit about me. I'm super excited about this event. I'm looking forward to hearing all the amazing experiences from also Betsy and Kashaf, and also learning a bit more about everyone else on the call too.
Cool. Okay, so that kind of also covered our first question, which was, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your current role? So I suppose we'll hop into the second question to avoid repeating ourselves. So a big part of Tech Under 20 Cup, which is coming up in the new year, is mentorship, right? So I wanted to ask you guys, what was your favorite instance of mentorship where you were the mentee? So what did you learn from somebody else? So Kewe, want to start?
Yeah, for sure. For me, I would say a lot of the mentorship I have personally received was indirect. So meaning that it wasn't a very clear, oh, you're the mentor and I'm the mentee. I was very indirect where people really took interest in helping me grow and wanting to advance my career. One of the cases here, and the way I actually met indirect mentors could either be through networking or people from the same team, or people who I work on the same projects together on. And from one of the cases where one of my favorite mentorship scenario was in my previous role, one of the senior managers that I worked with, she had a lot of experience in change management. and she was a sole contributor and lead for that project, for a particular project. And I expressed to her my interest in learning more about that specific area and building those core foundational skills. And she took that interest, and obviously pulled me in to help support her, but I also gained a lot of knowledge. And it just goes back to always just asking, what is the worst that could happen, right? It's a no. So that was my favorite instance. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like really interesting about like how there's not necessarily like you just learn from people around you, not somebody else's. Okay. About like how you just learn from more indirect instances and not like necessarily, this is like a very strict hierarchy of who is mentoring and who is the mentee. Okay, Betsy, do you want to go? Oh, is she frozen or is that just my screen?
She's frozen with me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kashaf, do you want to go in the meanwhile?
Yeah, sure. So since you were talking about the Tech Under 20 Cup, I'll talk about that experience as well as like another. So I was like a participant in Tech Under 20 Cup first year, which was 3 years ago. And my mentor for Tech Under 20 Cup was in marketing. And for me, that was a really interesting experience because he didn't have as much technical knowledge. But I think like with any career, like learning how to market, learning how to sell something and like show why your product is the best is interesting, and you learn all of these soft skills. And I thought that was an interesting experience because it's not somebody who I necessarily would go to mentorship first. I'd probably go to somebody in computer science, but I thought it was interesting that he didn't have like the same background as me. And I think that that's like the best mentorship, where they aren't necessarily who you would think. And as I mentioned previously, as I run an Instagram, I actually meet a lot of people through that Instagram who I would not normally meet just like on my day-to-day life. So I currently, I recorded a podcast last week with someone who also runs an Instagram, and I learned about her experience, how she didn't start in tech and actually went towards tech, what her future goals are. And I found that experience really enlightening because it's not somebody who I could meet daily. So Instagram and like social media allows me to make those connections and learn more.
Yeah, I think like especially in the modern age, especially like obviously like LinkedIn connections, like seeing the number that you have, and also being able to use that for like greater learning is quite interesting as well. Okay, Betsy, I know you're having some internet problems on that Zoom account. Is this one okay?
Yes, I actually had to use my phone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing those stories, Kewe and Kashaf. So my experience when it comes to being a mentee has been phenomenal. And I find it so intriguing when someone can see you and, just to Kewe's point, like take that time to invest, their time, their knowledge, and see the light, right? And what you have to bring to the table. So when you have that opportunity to have that encounter with someone, I say take it and run with it, because it really makes a difference for your future encounters and even in your career. So for me, I've had a bit of both. So I've had those who were just, piqued by my personality and how I orchestrate my work. And I've also had formal mentorship scenarios. So for my formal one, which I'm actually going through right now, there's a series of them, but there's one in particular. She's actually a VP. And the reason why our relationship got more in depth from a mentorship perspective is because of the Black Lives Matter situation this year. So she really wanted to hone in, understand what was going on and what she could do to help Black employees at our organization. So I felt really honored to be chosen, to give her that insight, but also offer reverse mentoring, right? Excuse me. So that was a really good experience for me. I've learned a lot about, communication, how to speak to executives, how to think more strategically. There's a lot of things I've learned. And from an indirect point of view, I've also been, fortunate to develop great relationships, but more importantly, I find it very amazing that, you know, when you have those relationships with people from different lines of businesses, from different areas of life, it really gives you a wholesome perspective on, you know, different careers and skills that you could potentially tap into. So my experience has been great as a mentee and as a mentor as well.
Found me a new
Thank you.
yeah, so that's kind of interesting because Dennis and I were on a call with like trying to get speakers for tomorrow's event. And one of the things that we were talking, like that the organization was talking about was like two-way mentorship, right? Like the importance of two-way mentorship. And I think that's like kind of reflected here, like being able to learn from people that are like supposed to be like formally teaching you things, but you know, it ends up also working both ways. Okay, so kind of relating to mentorship and also being able to achieve your goals is what's a current goal that you're working towards? Kashaf, want to start?
Yes, in short term, it's to graduate. In long term, I would like to start my own business eventually. I am pretty passionate about a learning disability, so I kind of want to take my knowledge with that and try to see if I can incorporate tech into that. And that's something that I'm kind of interested in for like a long-term goal. And to just kind of see where my career takes me past university.
Yeah, okay, cool. Betsy, want to go?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. So first of all, it would be to increase my business presence. So that organic skincare line that I was mentioning to you at the beginning that I founded this year. I have big dreams. You know, I would like to see that on Sephora shelves, Walmart. So it's really just building and being more serious about my branding and also the products that we carry. Secondly, I am taking a coding course through, it's called, I think it's called codecamp.org, but I have not been active on that site for about 2 months because, you know, things have been crazy and a little chaotic in my space, but I'm looking forward to resuming that in the next couple of days. So I definitely want to, you know, tap into the coding space because, as we know, the tech is the future. And so being able to tap into those on-demand skills is very important. And lastly, I think, you know, just continuing to build those connections with various people. Doesn't matter what level they are, but just getting to know people, creating opportunities for students, you know, to continuously pipeline diversity in our talent pools and ensuring that our leaders are abreast with our diversity strategies so we can create a picture that's holistic for all. So those are some of my goals. Kewe, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Betsy. So for me, I'm currently enrolled in a master's program. So it's a master's of management, innovation, and entrepreneurship. It's a mouthful, MMI for short at Queen's University. So obviously my short-term goal there would be to obviously complete that program. It's a 1-year program, it ends next year. So I'm doing that right now full-time at work and also full-time master's program. So it's definitely challenging, but it's going well. Second for me is, I think I share similar sentiment as Kashaf and Betsy. I, for one, haven't opened my own personal business, but within the next year, I'd like to start my own business, have a startup within the fashion space or influencer space, you would call it. The second thing is I want to look for avenues to actually help those who are early in their careers. And I mentioned this just because I've been through the experience where I didn't quite have the right mentorship when I was, you know, early in my university career, or even looking back at high school, I didn't have those guidance. So being able to set up that platform to support those who are early in their career and help them navigate, you know, this challenging career space, it's something that I'm really passionate about and looking for an avenue to actually fulfill that within the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in no position to judge the validity of anyone's goals, but those all sound like awesome and worthwhile things to try to achieve. Okay, but obviously there comes a downside towards like being in, not a downside, but like there comes challenges and like obviously conflicts in the workplace. And so one question that we have is, what's a challenge that you face in the workplace? It doesn't have to be like strictly work related. It can be like towards anything, just to give people a better sense of what it's like to be a professional. Who hasn't gone first yet? Kewe, want to start?
Yeah, for sure. I would say one challenge that I have experienced, not in this current role, but in my previous role, was not being given the recognition I deserve. I think at any point in time, people would go through this challenge, depending on what kind of team you're on or what kind of management teams you have. There were some members on my team who are much better at articulating their contributions on what they worked on to, senior management team or to the specific leaders. And for me, I did have this specific conversation on this challenge with a sponsor of mine, and she gave a feedback which was very important, and that helped me in this area. She mentioned that I have my career in my hands, and it's up to me to actually share my contributions and continuously keep advocating for myself to the right people to get the right recognition for what I've done and for my career as a whole. So that really helped me, and I obviously took that advice. So there was a significant change in that aspect. So that would be one challenge that I experienced and how I was able to obviously overcome that. And just to add also, it's a work in progress. It never stops. You have to continuously keep advocating for yourself over the course of your career. And I think it also translates to, for example, when you start a business, when you open a business, you have to continuously keep proving yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like so easy for a lot of us to just get walked over, like to like not be confrontational, right? If someone like, I mean, I obviously don't have like workplace experience, but in a group project, it's like, oh, if someone takes credit for a part that you've done, or today one of my friends, I think her English project literally got ripped off like word for word, and she was like, oh, do I bring this up with like plagiarism or whatever? And there was like she had like a whole folder of evidence or whatnot, and it's like difficult to stand up for yourself sometimes. Okay, Betsy.
Yeah, for sure. So Kewe, thanks for sharing that. And you know what? Some people are strong in certain areas than others. And I will say for me, I've always been quite strong when it comes to self-advocation, if I will. But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean everyone believes my story, right? So I've had, a couple of challenges where people would just look at me, my hair color, as you guys can see. It's not the traditional black, right? It wasn't born with this colored hair. I was born with black hair. So sometimes it's a matter of, do we take her seriously? Look at how she, wears her glasses, whatever the case may be. But more importantly, the fact that I'm black too has also been, unfortunately, a disadvantage for me. I do find that sometimes, people just sort of undervalue my opinions that I bring to the table. And it hurts. It does hurt. But again, I have a bit of that confidence to go to my manager or whomever that I'm looking forward to sharing my experience with, just to kind of vet it and get some advice, because I don't know everything, right? So I think self-advocation is like, you're going to the gym and you're flexing that skill. Like it's a skill that you really got to learn. And, I'm also still learning how to do that, because it's also about knowing your audience as well. So again, like being a woman sometimes just puts you at a disadvantage, and then your ethnicity too can also hinder you from certain career opportunities and whatnot. But I think as long as you stay true to yourself, what you come to the table with, and you understand your value, you can really shine.
Yes. Okay, cool. Found the unmute button. I keep forgetting that is even though I should be used to it by this point, because considering everything's online. But yeah, that is like, I think that's pretty good, like advice for just just in terms of what we see right now, especially in like school, and even like school projects, we sometimes get talked over being like a woman of color, or like not being taken as seriously. Like my dyed hair is not really a problem because it's just like blonde on the ends, but like sometimes it's just like during meetings and it's like, I have ideas, please don't cut me off in halfway through a sentence. So yeah, okay, Kashaf?
Yeah, so just like in my current role as an intern, I find it personally kind of hard to ask questions because I feel like I need to figure everything out on my own. So if they give me a task, I will spend a long time on it before I ask a question. And I think especially as an intern, like it's okay to ask questions, especially if you have no idea what's going on. Like it's better that you just let your manager know. And for me myself, this was a struggle this year because my entire internship, I started in May, but it's been online. So it's kind of like your manager can't physically see you if you're taking a long time on the same task. They don't see you struggling and stuff. So like they only see what or they, if you let them know. So for me, it was like about being able to communicate, hey, I'm having problems with this. Do you have any recommendations for what I should be doing to get better at this? Or just being clear with them about where I'm at with what I'm working on. And I think that's particularly for an intern, I guess, because I just have a lot of questions, even just about company culture and like what's going on. I have a lot of questions. So, and they're always happy to answer. I just think it's just like a personal thing. You're like, I want to figure everything out on my own. But as an intern, it's really good to ask questions and get to know things.
Can I just add that in general, it's okay to ask questions, you know, whether you're an intern or you're 10 years into your career. Some people like to frown on questions, but I'm telling you, questions is curiosity, and curiosity is actually highly valued in some organizations, I guess, but it just makes you you. And if you don't ask questions, how will you know? So, you know, if you have those questions, continue stretching them, because that's how you'll you'll get to gain that knowledge.
Yeah, and also to even add to that point, this is something a director told me recently, is that when you do ask questions, it enables other people to think about things they haven't thought about. So directly, you're helping everyone by asking that question. So don't, withhold asking the question. Always ask. There's nothing as a stupid question or a dumb question.
Yeah, like I think sometimes it's like you feel like you're gonna get judged so hard if you're asking a question that especially if no one else is asking questions and you think that everyone already knows what on earth is going on, you're the only one confused. It's so hard to like shake off that judgment sometimes. But yeah, that's something that I feel like we all could get better at. Okay, all three of you guys have brought up like bringing up the topic of being a minority in the workplace. So now I guess, especially given the theme of this week, we're gonna like address it head on right now in this question. So how do you approach a topic of being a minority in a technology space? Is it like part of your introduction, or is it something that you only bring up when prompted? And how do you engage with this topic that inevitably comes up at some point? Kewe, we want to start?
Yeah, for sure. I would say for me, first of all, I'm not in any shape technical at all, but I do work within a technical group at RBC. Looking at me, first, I'm a female Black woman, and that is the reality. But it's not something I do bring up. It's who I am. I wouldn't bring up that topic. And it's not, up for conversation. I think the only cases where I would actually bring it up is when I'm prompted, and it really would depend on my audience. It will depend on the issue at hand. For example, the Black Lives Movement that happened earlier, there was a lot of discussion, team meetings about it. So obviously, being Black, I'm always looked to always have an opinion and share experiences. And I think which is very key. We need to create that awareness and enlighten people about why certain things are right versus wrong, and how they can have a different perspective on racial diversity. Working at RBC, it has been great for me specifically just because RBC is really committed to diversity in a lot of the initiatives that they're doing. One of the key things they've developed is a mentorship group called Beacon. And what that program is about is to advance and accelerate inclusion and representation of Black professionals in leadership and executive positions. And I signed up for that, and I do currently have a mentor as part of that program to help advance me in my career. And also looking at the other skill of being a woman in itself, it's another challenge. And that is, I think Betsy had previously touched on this, being able to have your voice being heard. As a lady, for example, I'm not in a technical position, but I do have a friend, and she is the only female lead in a team of men. And she's always anxious about, what are the men going to say about her? How does she make her opinion or her voice heard? And that is a constant challenge that, we have to deal with, and in order to have our voice heard. But I think when I go back to RBC is definitely doing a good job. They have a lot of diversity initiatives for that. They have a lot of partnership with, for example, Canadian Women in Technology, CanWIT. I'm sure Betsy can speak more to this, since she is part of that recruitment space. But yeah, being part of an organization that is at the forefront of diversity is something that is very important to me, and RBC is definitely doing a good job. Rather, they're on the right path there.
Okay, cool. That's like obviously a good thing that it hasn't really that RBC is committed to diversity and you're in a workspace that fosters it. I think just to share, obviously we'll get to everyone, but just to share a personal perspective on it. It's oh, okay, I hear an echo. Okay, that might be on my end. So just share a personal thing. I think it honestly depends so much on the kind of space that you're in, because there's a computer science class in grade 11 at White Oaks. And it's introductory Python. So everyone, a lot of people take it, but it's sort of interesting to see about the ways that you felt as a woman in that class, because I don't know computer science. I am not the representation of a woman who is strong in the tech field. So I was constantly asking for help, right? But then I felt then there was all the guys who were sitting in the back corner of the room who were oh, I know everything. I'm already coding games and stuff while I'm just still figuring out how to use the print key. So yeah, it feels like there's a lot of judgment, especially when you might not be the most advanced and you're also expected to be a representative all the time of that experience. Okay, Kashaf, want to go?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't think I've ever brought it up explicitly, hey, I'm a woman of color, but it's obvious in who I am. If you look at me, I'm a woman of color in a STEM field. So I sometimes it comes up, I want to say in an interview, because it isn't something I'm passionate about, helping women in STEM. And I have been president of Women in Computer Science and Scientista, which is another club to promote women in STEM. So I think my experiences show that I'm passionate about having women in STEM, so it kind of speaks for itself. But in terms of the actual workplace, I don't know how much it's affected it. However, as Heather, you were saying, you always are kind of oh, I'm getting judged. For me, it took me a while, because I felt if I didn't know something, people would think I'm a representation of all women. So if I'm messing up, they're oh, well, see, women can't code. And for me, it was kind of just after I think a year of university, I kind of didn't really ask any questions in first year because of that fear. And then I eventually was these guys are asking so many questions, I should be able to as well. And I just want to learn more. So I just started being more talkative. And you just have to be, I think it's a confidence thing. I ask questions now all the time. I think also meeting other women in STEM and in my computer science classes really helps with that confidence and forming that group. But I think it's also just important to recognize that you are not a representation of your entire group, and you should never feel that way, because that's a huge weight to carry on your shoulders. So it's whatever you do is just a representation of you, not your community.
Yeah, that is advice that I needed when I was taking grade 11 comp sci. I'm not anymore, because I finished that class. But okay, Betsy, want to go?
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think Kashaf and Kewe did a really great job answering that question. So I'll just, add in my 2 cents here. I would say that I embrace it. I don't explicitly go in and say, hi, I'm a Black woman, you need to hire me. But, I let my personality shine, and I let my skills do the talking. So that's why it's very important to have sponsors and people who are willing to advocate on your behalf. Meanwhile, you're also advocating for yourself. But I've never been in a position where I had to, plead for anything because I am a female or a minority, if that's the term that we're using, to define, what I can contribute to a team or a task. It's never been a topic of conversation. I always try to let my work do the talking. And again, just, be a strong team player, be a strong employee, be a strong businesswoman, and people will see it.
Yeah, okay. I guess my kind of follow-up question to that is because there does like exist a significant representation gap between women, especially in like computer science and like very like STEM oriented fields. If you were say you were like a straight white male who's like who wants to be an ally towards minorities in these fields, what would your advice be to like try and improve diversity in these fields if you were coming from someone in a position of power? Kashaf, want to start?
Interesting question. So I think the best thing to do is like ask them, because everyone has like different experiences. And I feel like another thing is like just let like minorities actually be involved, and don't ever like doubt them because of like who they are. Like I found like some experiences, I feel like I'm being talked down to by those who may not be a minority, and I feel like that's like that kind of hurts my self-esteem. So I feel like it's just important to just like talk to us as equals. I think that's the biggest advice I would give.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Betsy, wanna continue?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like this question's right up my alley. So I do work in a space where I have to drive that top tech talent for students and new grads. And I'm constantly in this position where I need to advocate for the student that I'm bringing forward for a role. And so obviously it's a little bit subjective, right? Because I'm trying to create a diverse pool. So we're seeing all people from different backgrounds, people with different skill sets. But I always try to underline the message as your business will benefit from this individual because they offer a new perspective. If you're working with the same people doing the same thing, you guys are going to continue in the same fashion and nothing is going to change. And every organization, especially in this current climate, is looking for change. Everyone's looking to improve. So if you have that individual that's willing to, drive those changes forward, have those innovative ideas, that's a win-win situation for my group and your team, right? So I always try and highlight that, listen, we all have something to offer here. So let's try and be inclusive. And in regards to RBC, I cannot even, lie. They are such a great company. They're really pushing for and encouraging women to really embrace STEM and technical roles. We have so many different programs, whether it's, a ethnicity program or, woman in tech program. They have so many different associations to really bolster that message that women, and people from different backgrounds are all able to complete whatever task it is within technology. So again, I've never really encountered this issue as of late because of this message that we're putting across of diversity, but it is a subject that we're continuously trying to push and move the needle on.
Again, this is like, apparently RBC seems to be a very good company to work for, especially if you're a minority, because of how much they care about diversity. Kewe, do you want to continue and just wrap up this question?
Yeah, for sure. I'll just echo what everyone has said. Everyone has a play. So everyone has something to offer, and being able to open those opportunities for people to actually prove themselves is very important. And treating everyone as equal is also very key. And in terms of being an ally, there are multiple opportunities, there are events, there are resources out there that you can actually educate yourself on. And it just takes just asking, for example, to learn more about the people's experiences. If you don't understand why something is the way it is, confide in someone and get to understand it and ask why. And then you really understand, what are the experiences that, as we're calling it, minority space, and put yourself in their shoes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think those were obviously not in a place to judge the quality responses, but I think they were enlightening. Okay. So part of our theme for TU20 Cup this year is building resilient communities. So obviously it's a very broad theme. Anything you can consider resilient communities can be any aspect. So just to give the people who are here and the people who will be watching this recording, your 2 cents on what you think should be done to build resilient communities. Betsy? Want to start? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, so first and foremost, I think start off by having that curiosity mindset. So joining different clubs, associations, different workshops. This is how you expand your network and therefore create those communities that can eventually expand to greater things. So, events like this is a community that you can always keep in touch with me or Dennis or Kewe or Kashaf and ask us questions, right? Because we're all trying to do things to better ourselves and to better this narrative that it is okay for women to be in technology. We just need to learn how to flex that skill of self-advocation. So that would be my response to your question.
Cool. So yeah, Kashaf, wanna continue?
I was just gonna say, like, building a community is so fun. I actually met Betsy at another event I did. So it's like that community is like intertwined with this one. So it's just nice seeing like people at like different events. And getting to know their experiences is really fun because I think everyone has just such a unique background. Like, no, you're not going to meet two people who've had the exact same experiences. So just learning more about them. And I think you should just always have an open mind about everyone's experiences and think about them and why they might have those experiences. I think it's just important to like listen to people and their experiences to get a better sense of community. I do think like making these connections is really important, especially in like potentially like meeting mentors and stuff. It's a really excellent way to figure out maybe where you want to go in your career, even just other life goals. I think that's really interesting.
Okay, yeah, so just being able to network and stay connected with people. Kewe, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, for me, I would say sharing information. Sharing is knowledge, and I think that's one key thing we all need to do better at. We all have access to resources, we know information, and we just need to keep spreading to the next person, and that's how we're able to build that stronger community to really advocate for ourselves, build opportunities, and ensure that we're really standing out as a strong community. And part of that is also creating, for example, rotational mentoring circles. I recently joined this mentoring circle. Betsy is also part of that. And it's a mentoring circle just for women. And it's been amazing so far. So, and it doesn't have to start with, someone senior. It can start with yourself. If you don't start, who else will? So, take the stab at it, start that mentoring circle or start that initiative and begin and be that person of change that, the world needs to see.
Yeah, okay. I feel like that's like just all good advice and things for people who are participating in our like events should keep in mind for when they're brainstorming their ideas for this. Okay, so last question before we open up to audience Q&A is, what advice would you give to your student self? So I'm gonna set an age for this. So you're fresh out of high school self, just graduated grade 12, what advice would you give to them? Kashaf, want to start?
Yes, that wasn't that long ago. And since I'm still a student, I think that this is hopefully advice I take when I go back to school in September. But I think just being confident in yourself and like asking questions, like joining clubs, meeting people. I think everything has to do with confidence, because I was like, if you're too scared to join a club and you're nervous or to apply to an exec position, or you're just nervous about going to office hours, I feel like the way to best make of your university experience is realize no one's paying as much attention to you as you think they are. I always think everyone knows what I'm doing at all times, and I've come to terms with the fact that no one thinks about me as much as I wish they would. So I just, like, if it makes you happy, just go for it. For example, like I was like I actually started like my Instagram 2 years ago, and I barely posted because I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh, like I'm gonna feel judged. Who am I to like talk about my experiences? But only recently have I been like, my experiences are valid. I have something worth saying. And I think, again, all of this roots back into confidence, which I wish I had more of in first year.
Yeah, I think that's something that I could probably use some of. But yeah, okay, Kewe, do you want to continue?
Yeah, for me, I would say not to copy the Nike slogan, but just do it. What is the worst that could actually happen? You get a no, you get a rejection. You just keep going on. Apply for that role, reach out to that person, apply to be an executive for that club or association. Just do it. That is the nothing worse could happen if you don't try. You never know if you don't try. So, just do it and keep on trying. Yeah.
Cool. Betsy?
Yeah, thank you. I would say, again, just asking those questions and not being afraid to be who you are, to be authentic to yourself. So often do we get in front of managers or different organizations and we're putting on this facade, and it doesn't do us a service, right? It does us a disservice. So just really honing in the skills that you feel you're strong in, learning new skills, and keeping abreast with what's going on in today's world. And again, just staying true to who you are, being confident, and asking those questions, because there is no such thing as a stupid question. Do not fear to reach out to anyone on LinkedIn or whatever platform you're on to connect with people. I know there's different apps. There's one that someone just introduced to me. It's called Clubhouse or something like that. So, which actually cultivates different important conversations and communities that we were speaking about earlier. So just really getting involved and making your voice be heard, being seen, being known, because you may never know, it's that person who's looking at you and could offer you that job opportunity or be your business partner or whatever it is that you're looking to venture in. So being true to yourself is definitely something I would give advice to myself as a student.
Yeah, okay. So that concludes the panel question part of our evening. So does anyone from the audience have any questions that they want to ask? I know Dennis had to dip early because he said he had some reason, I forget now. But yeah, does anyone have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and say them, or just type them in the chat. Yeah, so if anyone has any, I know Eric and Eric were very participating with questions yesterday, so you expect the same today. No, I'm joking. Okay, so I think just one question that like I have. Oh, okay. Nope. Okay. Eric has a question. Kashaf, what editor do you use?
I use Visual Studio Code. Is that the wrong answer? Is there a right answer? Which one do you use? IntelliJ. Okay, nice. I know how to use a few of them, but I think Visual Studio Code is my go-to.
My question was more related to the sixth question that we had, which is like building resilient communities. One of the issues is there's a lot of systemic issues, and if you had to pick one that you think is like manageable for a student to start to tackle in this short 3-month period that we have, like a mentorship, what would you want? Like if you were a student, and if you had to if you had to pick one issue, like building resilient communities theme, what kind of systemic issue would you choose to tackle in your community? Kewe, want to start?
Sure. Where do I begin when it comes to systemic issues? I would say, and it just goes back to what I had mentioned before, building, for example, mentoring circles. And I think safe mentoring circles where people feel comfortable to actually share their experiences and their own opinions. There are definitely a lot of things that are in place when you think about for example, I'm a Black person, so there are a lot of things in place. People have a lot of bias, and unfortunately, that hinders when it comes to job opportunities. It hinders when getting promoted, for example, or getting that business opportunity. So having a safe space to actually connect with other like-minded people to build that community of trust, and have those those communities where people actually have experience in terms of they've been further in their career, or they have more business experience, to actually share some knowledge and some light on how to tackle some challenging issues. So a lot of times we go through these challenges, and we have no one to voice to, we have no way of going about it, we have no support system. So having those mentorship circles to actually advocate and support you throughout those journeys. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to briefly finish? Do you want to finish this question, or hop to Eric's before you finish this question? Because Eric's question is, do you guys think that the gap between men and women in tech will eventually even out in the future? Betsy, want to take this one?
You know what? I'm going to brag about RBC again, and Kewe can probably attest to this. So we actually have a goal that in 2024, we're trying to level out the playing fields and ensure that women and men are at that, equivalent space when it comes to their careers, the level at what there are in the tech space. So that's our goal, and we are working very hard towards that. And when I mean we're working hard, we're starting off from, the high school labs that we have at RBC all the way to our co-ops and our leadership development programs. So we're really trying to, again, bolster that message that women are capable, because we've noticed that there was that gap where women were a little bit hesitant of really advocating for themselves. So we're trying to create those spaces where women are able to do so. And again, given that goal that we have at RBC, we've been treading pretty well towards it. I think we're like at 49-50 right now. So as long as we continue that trajectory of pipelining the right talent, I think we will get there. And your organization too has to have an intentional mission to ensure that that strategy is enabled by all means. But if your leader is lax about those, societal priorities, I would say, then it would be a little bit difficult to get to that position.
Yeah. Okay. I personally think in the future is a broad timeline. So even if most organizations are not like RBC and some of them have a toxic masculine culture, I feel like at some point society will eventually progress to get there. So that's just my opinion on it. Does anyone else have anything else to add on this question?
I was just gonna say that it's great that companies are doing it, but what I really like that Betsy said is you start at the high school level, because you have to start at in high school, people don't take computer science classes, so then they're not going to take it in university, and therefore they're never going to join the tech field. So it's always important to start early and kind of change the norms. I think in the high school coding classes, I don't know the actual demographics, but I'm assuming it's more male oriented. I actually went into university without any coding knowledge because I was too scared to take it in high school, because I was just very nervous about the culture around computer science. So I think it also becomes just teaching women earlier, because a lot of women won't be willing to go into university with no coding knowledge. So just making sure that we instill that in them at a younger age.
Just to hop for the demographics one, grade 11 computer science is more 50-50 split, but in grade 12 computer science, it becomes very, very heavily male skewed.
Do you know why that is? Maybe we're going to throw the question to you.
So the reason in our high school, I think the reason for in our high school is because, I go to a high school that has the IB program, right? So a lot of people take grade 11 computer science because it's quote unquote an easy class, because the teacher doesn't really work that hard. So people are like, hey, Python, it's a useful skill, might as well take it. But but grade 12 computer science is notorious for being hard, right? So a lot of people drop out on it, and it's only the ones who feel like they have a real talent to succeed that continue in grade 12 computer science. And I feel like that might be the reason for a lot of the drop off later on. Yeah, because grade 11 computer science is kind of seen as a take it to get an easy 90 plus because Mr. Van Royen does not mark hard whatsoever. And if you put like a minimum amount of effort, you can probably get above a 90. So yeah, but grade 12 comp sci is not like that at WAS. Okay, Eric's question for Kashaf. What are some examples of applications that involve tech and cognitive sciences?
Yeah, so I guess the big one is artificial intelligence, which is super in nowadays. People really like it. What's interesting is I'm not particularly interested in artificial intelligence. However, I really like the idea of cognitive science, specifically psychology. And I just really like the psychology aspect of cognitive science. And I did like some language acquisition course, and I found those courses really interesting. So if you are into artificial intelligence, a lot of people do choose to do this double major. I personally did it because I really like psychology, and I think it's just a really interesting subject. I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do with both degrees in the future. Right now, I'm mostly focused on tech. Perhaps I was also thinking about maybe consulting or product management, in which case like having both of these degrees would be useful. So that's kind of what I thought of when I was doing this double major.
Okay, Eric, does that answer your question? Cool. Okay, so another question from Eric for Kewe. I believe this might have been covered early in the discussion, but what kind of work does your startup do?
Yeah, so just to give a brief background from the startup and how it was actually founded. So I participated in the hackathon for the first time. So I am in no way technical at all. So I participated in this hackathon by Ryerson University back in March. And luckily, my team ended up winning the hackathon, and we decided to move forward with a company. So what we do is we partner with suppliers of PPE and businesses to provide PPE. Obviously, as you can guess, March was the brink of the period where COVID was, there was a shortage of PPE, businesses were shutting down. There's a lot of missing pieces there. So that was a very viable business model at that point in time. Right now, we are trying to look for, what does the business model actually evolve to look like, and how can we continuously evolve with the changing landscape? We have a vaccine now, so would a PPE be used? What does the next 2 to 5 years look like for the business? Yeah.
Cool. Does that answer your question, Eric? Again?
Betsy, what's the name of your skincare line?
I'm so glad you asked. So it's called Rich, for him, for her.
Ooh.
If I don't have you on LinkedIn, I should probably have you. I think I do have you, but I can certainly send you the link to the website.
Nice, thank you. I was so
Two things that this panel has been a plug for: RBC and Caroline.
RBC.
I think just to add a comment, Kashaf, Kewe, they are strong women in technology, strong women in business. So impressed to hear your story, Kashaf, to be quite honest with you. I know you were interviewing me the other time, so I didn't get to hear your story. So it's really nice to have you alongside on this panel, and I'm quite impressed with what you're doing. So I really do look forward to checking out your Instagram page. So if you could drop it in the comments so we can all take a look into that, that'd be great. And to you, Kewe, for winning that hackathon, I remember that was announced on LinkedIn, and that's impressive. And having gone and leading a hackathon myself this time, what was it, like 2 months ago, or last month rather, and seeing all the hard work that goes into it, hats off to you. So that's incredible. I'm even planning to participate in the hackathon myself, seriously, because there's just so many different things you can learn. And again, that just ties into our message of, having that resilient mindset, having that growth mindset, and continuously working on yourself so you can remain competitive in the market.
Okay, it is currently almost 9. Oh, okay, so one last question for Eric, and then I think we'll wrap things up. In the meanwhile, I know that you guys probably have more questions and might not want to ask them in the setting, but feel free to mentors, drop your LinkedIn's, emails, socials in the chat, and they can message you guys afterwards. So I think this is more for the people who do work at RBC. I've heard about several internships, co-op work experience opportunities offered by RBC for university and even high school students. Could you describe some of them? I think this is a Betsy, Kewe-oriented question.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. So are you trying to understand what the experience like is for students? Okay, yeah, most definitely, Eric. So first of all, I'm not saying this because I work at RBC, but the reality is it is a great company, and we've made every single effort to ensure that our students have a very consistent experience. So when it comes to our virtual onboarding, being assigned projects that are meaningful, that's something that we also want to ensure that our students leave with, because, you know, sometimes we hear of stories of students not necessarily enjoying the work that they're doing and feeling a little bit hesitant to vocalize that to the leadership team. So we always create those intentional projects to ensure that they're gaining something. And of course, we want to make sure that that also aligns with what your course requires of you to graduate. So when it comes to experience right now, because we have shifted to the virtual platform, so we are no longer in office unless you're considered an essential worker. We've created different programs, an extensive program for our students to ensure that they are very engaged in other things aside from their day-to-day work. So we're always trying to ensure that we're pushing, you know, innovation challenges and, you know, other programs and office hours and so many different opportunities for you to connect, build your network, and again, still being abreast with the work you're doing day to day. I hope that answers your question, Eric. And right now, just to plug it in, we do have our summer postings. So if you're not graduating until August or even next year onwards, feel free to apply to our postings right now because they are up.
Okay, more RBC plugs. All right, so I'm just going to briefly share my screen to go over what the next steps are in next events, but that concludes in terms of the panel questions, so this will literally take like 2 seconds. But so in terms of, let me present my screen, present this. Okay, so in terms of what the next events from here, so tomorrow we have Meet and Mentor Indigenous Mentors in Technology, so that's tomorrow. Then we have a break on Thursday, and then Friday is the TU20 holiday social, so if you want to meet some people and play some games, not entirely sure what games are running, but that'd be fun. So if you want it, for early bird ticket sales end on December 19th, sales for regular TU20 Cup end is January 2nd, and the TU20 Cup starts on January 5th. So if you guys wanted to sign up for that, better get your tickets in soon. Okay, hold up. All right, so thank you so much for attending. As always, if you have any questions, you can email us at info@techunder20.com. Our Instagram is techunder20, and all of our socials are here, and also the mentors have dropped their socials in the chat.